Hello, dear students. This is the second part of our third lecture about Raymond Williams, and this is our course of Cultural Studies for Level 7. Today we will discuss two major points about the work of Raymond Williams. The first one relates to a debate he had with another cultural critic. His name is Marshall McLuhan, and this debate was about the question of technology and culture, the relation between technology and culture or technology and society. It was included in one of the important books written by Williams and published in 1974. The book has the title Television, Technology and Cultural Form. Now, in order to understand this, let me remind you that Raymond Williams is a Marxist, a committed Marxist or a committed socialist, and that the philosophy of Marxism is usually considered or maybe sometimes called the philosophy of historical determinism or الحتمية التاريخية. The word determinism is a very important word or term when we come to talking about Marxist philosophy or socialist or communist philosophy. Simply, it means that societies, human societies, are determined by factors, and that this determinism necessitates the societies to develop in a certain direction. The societies cannot help themselves against these deterministic forces of history that direct the societies in a certain direction. Now, this introduction about Marxism as a deterministic philosophy, a philosophy that does not believe in the free will or free choice, not on an individual level. We are not talking about individuals, we are talking about societies. So communist philosophy is not a great believer, to say the least, of free will or of choice, freedom of choice. On the contrary, communism believes in determinism, as if you have an equation. This factor plus that factor will certainly lead to this, or will certainly lead to this result. You see? So, Williams is a Marxist, yes, but he has his own thought. He has his modifications. He doesn't just accept the Marxist ideology wholesale like this. So, he was disagreeing strongly in the book that we just mentioned, Television, Technology and Cultural Form, especially in a chapter inside the book, and the title of the chapter is The Technology and the Society, which of course means the relation between technology and society. The technology that was referred to here was the television technology in particular, because this was the age of television in the 1950s, 60s, and the mid-70s. People were still theorizing about television and its effect on society and so on. So, in this book, Williams refused what McLuhan called the technological determinism. According to McLuhan, technology exerts a deterministic control on societies, and societies are like helpless in front of this technological determinism. But Williams rejected that. He said that, of course, there is what we call determinism, whether technological or other types of determinism. Of course, it exists, but it is never fully in control. It can set limits or it can exert pressures, but there is always the freedom of choice and the possibility of change within the set limits and the pressures. For example, if the television as a technology, a new technology at that time, if television is determining certain social practices or certain patterns of cultural practices or something like that, it doesn't fully control us. It doesn't determine us as individuals and societies 100%. It just sets certain limits to our practices, and it sets or exerts pressures, maybe strong pressures on our practices, but still we are free to choose and we are free to have our own direction within the limits and within these pressures. So, of course, this would make Raymond Williams an optimist, someone who believes in the possibility of social change, even when there are strong deterministic factors affecting us, and even when these factors cannot be removed or cannot be forgotten or cannot be abolished, they will remain, and we are going to deal with them or cope with them. We cannot simply say it's all because of television. There is nothing that we can do about it. Our children, for example, are developing in a different way because of television. We cannot simply say this. Television is there, or if we are taking this argument to our contemporary social media culture, we can simply replace the word television with Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or whatever. It is there, but it doesn't determine and control our lifestyles or our cultures and cultural practices fully. It just puts pressures and limits, but it doesn't fully control us. Always humans are stronger than technology. They are always having their freedom of choice within the limits, constraints, and pressures exerted by technology. In this slide, we are going to talk about two of the novels written by Raymond Williams. He has written a number of novels, short stories, and plays, but we thought to select just these two titles so that you get an idea about how Raymond Williams used his literary production in order to express or to give body to his ideas in general. His novels mainly emphasize the question of class, and they have many autobiographical elements. For example, they are usually set in Wales, South Wales to be exact, his home country. And they usually have this thing about a father and a son. The father still living the old life in the old country in Wales, and the son has migrated and gone to another place. And then when he comes to visit, there is this contrast between his new identity and his old identity as a child. And there are always workers and general strikes and class struggle and this respect for education, because you have to remember that for working classes, education is of particular importance. It is like the only means of upward social mobility, to give their children or the next generations a chance to have a better life. So in most of the novels, you have this same thing. Let's talk a bit in detail about the first title that you have here. The title, as you see, is The Border Country. This is the title of the novel, Border Country. It was first published in 1960, and many critics thought that the term border does not only refer to South Wales or to the village on the border between Wales and England, but it mainly refers to the identity, that there is a sharp border or a sharp dividing line between the identity of the son who works as an academician in London, in one of the universities in London, and who comes to visit his father in the country, in the rural village of Wales. And when he comes to visit, he discovers that everybody in the village still treats him as his old identity, his father's son, the son of a railway worker. So actually, he finds that he is sharply divided. In London, he has one identity, but back home, when he goes to visit in Wales, he has a different identity. And the two coexist. He cannot simply forget one of them or deny one of them. He is both. He is this identity in this place and that identity in the other place, and there is a sharp border between them. The summary of the plot will tell you a lot about the themes and the general characteristics of Williams's novels. For example, we have that this academician, this son, he comes to visit his working class father because the father was sick, and during the visit the two reminisce together. They have memories about real life events that happened in the 1920s and 30s. One of these events refers to the general strike that happened in Wales in 1926, and the impact that this general strike had on the workers of the country, of the Welsh workers. And there is always this discussion of the condition of the small primary industries and of the coal miners, and there is a contrast between these workers and the workers of the big manufacturing industries that are quickly developing in the area, but still it is all about working class problems and so on. At the same time, there is the theme of migration, how many of the young people of these rural villages in Wales, when they get their education, they have to migrate and go to the metropolis or to bigger cities in order to search for a better opportunity. They still have their roots there and they still have the same beliefs, and when they return on home visits, they are changed, just becoming once more the sons of their fathers and so on. But it is a social phenomenon that they have there, the phenomenon of migration. And as we said, the novel also discusses this great respect which the Welsh working class have for education. And in truth, Marxism respects education a lot, because if you are a Marxist, then you believe that you need to raise the consciousness of the working class, to let them understand more about the real life situation, about their rights and their duties and how they can achieve some of their goals. And the only way to do that is through education. So whenever there was a Marxist activity in any place in the world, there was always a great stress on the opening of schools, maybe even night schools to educate the workers, adult education if you like. So this theme is always present in the novels of Williams, including Border Country. And as you can see, there are strong autobiographical elements, of course, in this novel as well as other novels. Now, the second novel that you have is Second Generation, first published in 1964, and it mainly discusses the contrast between the world of the university and the world of the factory, and how there are many characters in the novel who are in search for their true identity or place among these contradictory forces. They don't know exactly where they belong. As the educated second generation of working class parents, they don't know whether they belong in the world of the university or the world of the factory. Again, many critics commented that this novel, Second Generation, is built on a real life situation. And this situation is that during the 1960s, the university, the Oxford University, became the neighbor of a motor car factory called Morris Motors. And this means like the factory and the university were neighbors. They coexisted together within a very close proximity. The two worlds almost came in touch, but there was always this dividing line. They may come in touch, but they would never intermingle. There is always this dividing line between them. So as you see, as a novelist, Williams was using his creative writing in order to serve what he believes in. He had his own political beliefs, which are deeply socialist, as we mentioned before, and it wouldn't be a surprise that his novels are mainly explicating these beliefs and using them as major themes and influencing all the aspects of the novel, whether the setting, the characters, the events of the plot, the imagery, whatever, it is all influenced by his socialist commitment. Now we have come to the end of Raymond Williams' lecture, and thank you for being attentive, and let me wish you all good luck.